Well, I was actually only on
Only in Vancouver.
Yeah, in the Vancouver side, but I definitely drove a ways out. I mean, here's the most embarrassing thing I had to do. I had to go find Rob Pattinson.
You're waiting for that.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
spectacular. So that would be my tip is add the soundtrack, and it really notches it up a bunch of levels. You're in it. It's a special place. It's a magical place. Even now that I don't live in New York anymore, I still am the one in the taxi with the big smile. I'm like, it's Times Square. I still, because you remember that original magic and how many movies you saw, and now you're in your own movie. You're living your own travel life. You've got the soundtrack. When I used to walk through Times Square on the way home from work, I would have my headphones in, and whatever Broadway theater I was walking by, I would play the soundtrack.
Oh my God.
And so I would just frolic, and Wicked played a big part.
Yeah, Wicked's in that.
Rent. Yeah, Hamilton wasn't here back then, but there's always a way. You can always listen to a soundtrack. The popularity of streaming platforms, we got Netflix, we got Disney Plus, we have all of them. I know this because I pay for all of them, and it's just insane how much we do with the streaming services now. But how does that affect the visibility of filming locations? Do you feel like it's hit sort of a fever pitch now with streaming? The popularity of streaming platforms, we got Netflix, we got Disney Plus, we have all of them.
Right.
I know this because I pay for all of them, and it shows up, it's just insane how much we do with the streaming services now. But how does that affect the visibility of filming locations? Do you feel like it's hit sort of a fever pitch now with streaming?
Yeah, I actually didn't subscribe to streaming for a long time because I knew this would happen, and it did. If I watch episode 1, I have to get to the end right away, so the weekend's gone. But I think part of it is that you're not just lost in the storyline, you're lost in the places. Like The Diplomat on Netflix, which is really a government, it's about politics, but London is such a beautiful character. And then there was a scene in Paris, which I'm convinced I was there when they shot it, because I was in Paris when they blocked off the Louvre, and they were it was lit up perfectly at night, and then it's just like that. I was looking at my pictures versus what was on screen. I know I know I wasn't there. It was around the same timeline, but it made it seem exciting that okay. So I think that because even a show it's not something like The Diplomat, they're not saying this is a location-based movie, but yet it is. And I suddenly want to go to all the places that I saw in there. Also, I think when there are just period pieces, sometimes there's
just places
in and around
that make
England.
sense.
Right. There's that
Bath.
handful.
Yes.
Exactly. Bath is filmed in, everything was filmed there, right? Exactly.
Every Jane Austen.
Yes.
Every Bridgerton. Yes.
Exactly. But also, I don't know, I feel like it's gone a little under the radar, but Day of the Jackal with Eddie Redmayne is actually it's about a sharpshooter. It's terrifying, but he kind of uses Europe as his playground. Location is such a beautiful background of this series as well. And I actually talked to Eddie Redmayne about it, and even though they're hopping, they must hit up 30 locations in this film, but they only filmed it in 4. So using Croatia to film scenes that were supposed to be in Estonia. And so I think there are certain countries where, he's also a producer on it. So he's tax breaks are the reason we chose where we filmed. So if you really want to get technical and look at why the next great filming location, I hate to say follow the filming tax rules.
Yes.
But that is true. North Carolina is such a big filming location. During my day, it was Dawson's Creek. And then when I was in my early working days, One Tree Hill, I went down there for a lot of the sites there. I went to the basketball court. That was just a basketball court. I heard it's since been demolished, which is so sad. But to be able to see where Nathan played, and to see where, all these shows were filming along Dawson's Creek along the waterfront, it was just such a magical place. But everyone's there, and they're living there because of the tax breaks. And Georgia, that's why so much filming is going there. So I think it's just, where's the next big place that film productions will be going?
And that has the infrastructure probably to bring in a crew,
right,
especially if you're doing a big budget action something. You would want to reuse a place to be multiple destinations, because it's better for the budget, and you can actually keep everybody in the same hotel.
Yes.
Think how many fewer flights you have to book.
Actually, a really fascinating place I I stumbled upon it and then became obsessed with having to go. It was south of Trilith in Georgia, south of Atlanta. There's a hotel that's called All Movie Hotel. It's literally between two fast food restaurants. It's just a motor lodge. But Francis Ford Coppola bought it. While they were filming in Megalopolis, the whole crew stayed in this motor lodge. So Francis bought this motor lodge, converted it into a luxury hotel. Inside, like you would never know from the outside. So I went down there, I had to stay overnight. It looked like a Motel 6, but you opened it up and it was like the coffee machine must have been from like some European. It was like, oh, that's Francis's favorite. When I talked to the woman in the lobby, she's like, oh yeah, everything's to his liking.
Oh, okay.
And then like I got a little sneak peek that I know I wasn't supposed to, but they let me peek into. They have a sound scoring studio. So they've taken a few of those rooms and turned it into a studio. They have a beautiful space for them to just have breakfast and have their production meetings. So it's like literally in the middle of nowhere, they built this amazing luxury place that like it's like
you wouldn't know.
It's the opposite of a facade. Is nothing on the outside and amazing on the inside. So yeah, I think there's also little hidden gems like that.
It seems like almost anywhere you go, you can find some kind of film or TV connection, whether it was actually filmed there or not. I think like Yellowstone. Most of Yellowstone, I don't believe is filmed near Yellowstone. I think a lot of that is Texas and other places. But boy, does it attract visitors.
Right. Because once you have that allure and you get talking about the place again. I mean, I grew up in San Jose, California, which I was always like, we live in the middle of nowhere. This is, nobody cares about us or knows about us. And then I remember a Bill Murray movie, Larger Than Life, filmed at our airport. And I was like, oh, we're on the map. I feel like there's something about having like Hollywood recognize a location, makes you feel like you're in a place that's more important. And then like there was a TV series of Parenthood that was a very short-lived TV series, but it was set in San Jose. And I was like, oh my gosh, now it's set there. So yeah, you're right. Whether it's set there or actually filmed there, there's something about having had, it gives your a place relevance.
You did some pretty extensive filming location travel for Twilight, did you not? In Vancouver in your teen magazine days. So what were some highlights of that for you? What did you see and what should people go looking for in Forks, Washington or?
Well, I was actually only in Vancouver. Yeah, in the Vancouver side, but I definitely drove a ways out. I mean, here's the most embarrassing thing I had to do. I had to go find Rob Pattinson.
That's amazing. Tell me everything.
And so...
I have an embarrassing Rob Pattinson story too. I will definitely tell you.
So I knew that a friend of his was a musician and was playing at a small club that weekend I was there. So I went to the show. And since I was a magazine editor at the time, I had interviewed him before the show and did all the things. But, I just went to enjoy the show. And sure enough, when I looked in the back corner, it was him and Kristen Stewart, both of them at the time. So I found them.
Yeah, and at the time, that was the hot couple.
Exactly. It was in the moment. It was at exactly that time. So, there's always, I guess kind of built into filming locations is celebrity sightings. I mean, the reason that a lot of us are going there are with the hopes of spotting somebody. And it's funny, all the years I lived in LA, I don't think I ever really saw anybody. And then I'd hear friends go out and I saw this long list of people. And I think it just kind of depends on what you're looking for in the moment. But there are certain places, if you go in the morning to Times Square for Good Morning America or to Today's Show to Rockefeller Center, you're going to see somebody. They're not just the host, but there's going to be special guests there. So there are also places that it's more celebrity sighting than, still they're filming a morning show. It's different, but it's there.
You still might get to see somebody that you love.
Exactly.
And it's fun. It's a fun thing to do when you visit New York.
Yes. And if you want to go really New York, I'm also turned into a huge Saturday Night Live fan in recent years. And so I've done the standby line I like
too many times.
17 times, but I think at last count. But if you want to meet the cast members, they all have to leave 30 Rock. There's only one way out. So people gather at the barricades after the show and they do, it's just like a Broadway stage door. They do that. And if you're a Broadway fan and your favorite celebrities, people are starring, I just saw Katie Holmes and James Parsons in our town. Everybody's going to come out. And Daniel Radcliffe, on the last day of Merrily We Roll Along, gosh, I'm really a Harry Potter fan, aren't I? I've actually seen all of Daniel Radcliffe's Broadway plays.
Nice.
But yeah, on the last day, I went with my playbill because he didn't come out the day I actually saw the musical. So I went back with my playbill, and the cop saw me reaching across and got him to sign it. So there are ways to go celebrity sighting that may not be tied to filming locations.
When I lived here, I ran into celebrities quite a bit, but I never said anything. You know, you see them, you clock them, and then you're like, OMG, it's so-and-so.
Yeah, in real life, you don't want to
bother somebody's day.
Like, I was just down, actually was just down in Baja Mar in the Bahamas, and this John Baptiste opened his own jazz club, which was very exciting. And that also kind of goes into a different aspect of live tourism being so popular now and being parts of events. But he was at the airport on the flight back, and it's like, that's regular life. You don't want to overstep that.
No.
But after a stage door, they're
different.
There to sign.
They're there
for selfies. Yeah. So I think there's time. If that's what you want that's what you want, then that's the time to do it.
The Bahamas is a really good film location.
Yes.
Hotspot, especially if you like James Bond movies. They've got some going back to the 60s and some very, very difficult to get to areas, but really worth it, like Thunderball Grotto. I don't know if you've ever been there.
No, I haven't.
In Exuma. It's where they
filmed.
Pigs are. Then it's right by the pigs. It's around the corner from the pigs. It's this grotto, and they filmed inside of it for James Bond's Thunderball.
Amazing. Yeah. And also reality shows is a genre we haven't really touched on, but like The Bachelor had filmed at the, staying at Baja Mar, that whole resort. Many Real Housewives had filmed there. I believe it was Zach's season, The Bachelor. This is the pier that he walked down on the date. This is where the girls were at the water park at Baja Bay. So I think reality shows is a different aspect of it. Of set jetting, as we haven't quite used the term set jetting yet, but I know every time I say it, people think I got it backwards, but it is meant to be set jetting, not or jet setting while we see the sets.
Yes.
So set jetting. And another experience I had last year, which was kind of, I still haven't even acknowledged I was there because it was just it felt like a dream. The Nemacolin Resort in the Laurel Highlands of Pennsylvania. It's about 90 minutes south of Pittsburgh, again, middle of nowhere. A Bachelor season had been filmed there too. First of all, this is so many times you go to a place and it's not as nice as it looked on TV. Mm-hmm. This place was like nicer, like everything was shinier than I expected. I mean, you expect everything to be shiny on The Bachelor, but like this was just like, it was so extravagant. And I happened to be there for their summer solstice weekend. I mean, at the opening party, I'm like, there's Megan Fox, there's Machine Gun Kelly, there's Neil Patrick Harris. His kids are just running around the hedges. Like, it was such a out-of-body experience. So I feel like if you want celebrity sightings, there are also these events that, like, a lot of resorts will have these events where they're on their vacations too, and then you're just kind of vacationing with the celebrities.
You're just there.
Yes. I mean, Lady Gaga ended up being the surprise guest, Jimmy Fallon. Who else was there?
That's a party.
It was Michael Bublé, Lionel Richie sang. It was a crazy, surreal. Yeah, I still haven't acknowledged that it all happened.
No, that sounds like it was a wild.
It was, yes.
Surreal adventure.
Like, I was lured there with the lore of The Bachelor filmed here, and like,
and this was way better. Right?
There was also John McEnroe was playing tennis I got too nervous. I wouldn't hit a ball with him, but I could have gotten in line to hit with John McEnroe. Michelle Wie, Michelle Wie, the golf pro, was there too. It was spectacular. So sometimes these places are also where they hang out.
Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned The Bachelor, and I'm pretty sure I first heard about Jade Mountain in St. Lucia from a many, many, many years ago season of The Bachelor. And so I always wanted to go there. Right. There's really something about seeing it in a dramatic, a cinematic, whatever the light is, right. A fantasy light, whatever the movie is, TV show, that gets you to know about a location you didn't know about.
Right.
Whether it's a hotel, whether it's an ancient city, whether it's a line of historic trees, in a field. There's something about seeing it on TV that makes you feel like you need to go do that. And it just indicates to you that there is a place. Like, I don't know that I would have gone to St. Lucia had I not found out about St. Lucia through The Bachelor. And I didn't need to take a Bachelor tour when I got there. I don't care about that.
Exactly.
But it showed me that there's a spectacular hotel that's really unique and in a beautiful destination. Because, anytime you're watching a reality show, They get in there and they do their little
They know what they're doing.
their little commercial, and they're like, look, mangoes. And you learn enough about it to decide, okay, now I want to go there. Same thing with Exuma and the swimming pigs and all these things that used to be kind of obscure. And you used to only find out about in the travel section of the newspaper.
Right.
Now the travel section of the newspaper is TV.
All the things.
It's TV. It's movies.
It's the Netflix. It is the anything streaming. It is anything. I mean, it's in our social media feed. It can be anything these days because, right, these people have already curated the best places. They've found these places that look so alluring on film. So, of course, they're alluring in real life as well.
So I guess we've decided that filming location travel, this set jetting, encourages people to explore places they maybe never would have thought of.
Absolutely. I think it's inspiration. It's like flipping through the pages of a travel magazine or a newspaper, like you said, or it's like scrolling through your feed. But it's not just that static moment. You're immersed in it in a storyline. So it feels like a deeper connection.
There's a difference between story and history. Like we can know the history of a place. London is probably a good example. You can know the history. There's so much history.
Right.
It's spectacular just reading and knowing about the royal family and the years and the wars and all the things. But then you watch The Crown.
Right.
And wow, does it come alive in a way that you just didn't know, especially because a lot of these folks are still alive and,
Right.
Living history. And even though The Crown is fictionalized in a lot of ways, the locations are still so amazing to see. London from the 40s, London in the war. And
now when you see it, you know those layers that it's been through.
yes.
And if we really want to go into royals, I'm a little bit of a royals fan as well.
You don't say.
I actually was at both the Queen's Platinum Jubilee and the King's,
I'm so jealous.
coronation.
I'm a big fan of the Queen.
I mean, just to have, I could not believe that was her last one. I'm so glad I went and almost missed my flight. I'm so grateful I got there in the nick of time. But a royal weekend, I mean, that's a different kind of filming, right? It's a filming location, but real life.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, we're reading about them, we're seeing about them. They seem like the ultimate reality show in some ways. And it's like there was a very specific schedule. So I knew to go to this church and that I would see Harry and Meghan walk in. And I did. Like it seemed almost too simple. And then I knew to go to, obviously in front of Buckingham Palace. This is where the whole royal family, there's Will and Kate waving in the coach. And then during the coronation, I did wake up early and scout out my spot for the coronation. But it was so much fun to wait with other people. And just the fact that people came from all around the world to be part of that. I think waiting was part of the fun of it. And then when the actual moment when they went down the mall, or they say the mall tour, it was real life magic. It was almost like it was filming a real.
It felt like a movie.
Yeah,
but it was actual history happening in real time.
Right, but then you feel like you know so much because of the Crown,
Well, and I was going to say, because so many things are filmed in Europe's biggest cities.
Right.
I would say I ended up studying abroad in Paris, and I guarantee that was because I'd seen it on TV.
I would say a big part of the reason I live here right now in New York City is because I grew up during that era of You've Got Mail, One Fine Day.
Yes.
Also, even like Home Alone, Lost in New York. It was actually a very beautiful movie about New York. The Plaza was just like the most fabulous hotel I'd ever seen on screen. I mean, all these movies that just made New York feel so special made me want to move out here and live it. And it feels like that every day.
Yes, it does.
And then every time I get out, I know that I'm not a true New Yorker because I actually love Times Square. But part of the reason I love Times Square, and I worked in Times Square for many years, and I know I know what a pain it is. But I just think of that moment of when I first arrived and looked up.
Yes.
Like Felicity did, and when she got up when she first arrived in New York City. I think it's such a special moment. So I try to remind myself never to get annoyed with the tourists because they're having their Felicity moment looking up. And I just think it's, as when you live here, you don't want to deal with that, but everybody's enjoying New York because of what they've seen on screen.
It's a special place. It's a magical place. Even now that I don't live in New York anymore, I still am the one in the taxi with the big smile. I'm like, it's Times Square. I still, because you remember that original magic, and you know, how many movies you saw, and now you're in your own movie. You're living your own like travel life. You've got the soundtrack. When I used to walk through Times Square on the way home from work, I would have my headphones in, and whatever Broadway theater I was walking by, I would play the soundtrack.
Oh my God.
So I would just frolic, and, you know, Wicked played a big part.
Yeah, Wicked's another one.
Rent. Yeah. Hamilton wasn't here back then, but
Right.
you know, so there's always a way. You can always listen to a soundtrack. Oh, this is my tip. If I had to give one tip, I would say cue up the soundtrack to wherever you are, and you are immediately immersed. So with Downton Abbey, we were in a cab, like coming down the long and winding drive. So when it came into view, we were hearing it just like you do in the intro for the show. And it was so magical. Same thing, Jane Austen, I will listen to the whole 2005 Pride and Prejudice soundtrack and just walk through the countryside.
Right.
Completely. Like, it doesn't even have to be a film set. It's just you're walking through the countryside in the Cotswolds or something.
Right.
And you are a Jane Austen heroine.
Yeah.
You are a Bennett sister.
Yes.
You're in it. And it's so fun. Hawaii is another good one.
Oh, yes.
You get in the helicopter and you put Jurassic Park on in those big headphones, you are crying.
It doesn't matter what you see. It looks like the dinosaurs are about to come around the corner.
You're waiting for that. It's spectacular. So that would be my tip is add the soundtrack, and it really notches it up a bunch of levels. You're in it.
Yeah. Another funny thing I do is every time there's a Grand Slam tennis tournament, I love the movie Wimbledon, but I watch that every time. And then it just kind of heightens oh my God, yes, that was fictional. But it was filmed at the Wimbledon All England Tennis and Racket Club, I believe is the official name. Yeah, so it's filmed in the actual site, but it just makes it feel more important when you see it again in that context. And also, I always watch the movie on my way there, especially if it's on the plane. It's like seeing it fresh as you're landing somewhere just makes it feel like, okay, this is where I'm going. It roots you in.
It does.
A place. I'm like, okay. And then you start noticing like things. Oh, next to the London Eye, there's another building there. Like.
That is a really good tip as well, because back in the day, I took my little sister to London and Paris for her 16th birthday. I promised her when she was very, very little that we would do it, and we did it. I thought I would be a lot richer by then, so that was different. But so I took her to London and Paris, and her assignment was to watch this long list of movies. So, because I wasn't going to make her, know everything about the royal family pedigree for 100 zillion years. But I wanted her to be able to say, I know who the queen is. I know who Queen Elizabeth I was. I know what the Spanish Armada was, just so you can have a better appreciation of the place where you are. And we did the same thing with Paris. And some of the movies were animated. Like,
oh my gosh.
One of the movies was The Aristocats. That's not exactly real life film location, but it's set in France. And so you get the vibes and.
Yeah, it's still context. That's so funny you say that because my family's from Taiwan. And so, I always felt like I was being dragged to Taipei as a kid. And I was like, oh, we're just sitting with relatives. It's all dirty and stinky, blah, blah, blah. Later on, I learned that Scarlett Johansson's Lucy was actually partially filmed in the old market that my grandfather actually had a stand. And suddenly it became like, oh, this is accepted by Hollywood. But there is a seaside or a mountain, I don't call it a suburb, it's still part of New Taipei City. It's called Jiufen. And so my dad took me there years ago. And there were just so many tourists on this one little alley. And I was like, what? Why are they here? It was from the animated movie Spirited Away. And there's no proof that this is actually where it was inspired by, but they're all here for a taste of Spirited Away, especially I think Japanese tourists especially were all on that one, like there's a tea house and red lanterns. And it does look very cinematic. But it's an animated movie, and that still brought all the tourism out. I mean, it's an hour outside of Taipei. It's not the easiest place to get to. You have to take a bus, and it's a whole thing. It's always raining, but it's a vibe there. And so animation is also a way to get people to places which you never expect.
It does happen. When you think like Moana.
Yes.
A lot of Polynesian vibes. Lilo and Stitch. Set in Kauai.
Exactly.
And of course, it's not real, but when you're in Kauai, you're like, Lilo and Stitch, Lilo and Stitch. I totally get it. The Shave Ice Shack, like, you just get it and you feel it. And it just makes it more personal. I mean, travel already is so amazing and special and life-changing.
Right.
But when you can add other stories into
Connect
it.
it to something.
You layer it, and it just makes it that much more powerful. And add the music, add the costumes. Yes. You are living your best life at Downton Abbey or wherever it may be, or in Salzburg.
Right, exactly.
Or I mean, Dubrovnik. There's something about movies and TV that make travel just extra special. Since you told the TRL story, I will tell you my Robert Pattinson story. Ooh. My sister was in town. She was probably 14 or 15 years old. He was in town filming some movie. I don't even remember what it was at the time. But I left my job in the middle of the day, like snuck out of my job to take her to this filming location. It was Central Park. And we waited outside his trailer for him to come out and film his next scene for like 2.5 hours. And I was like, I'm going to get fired from my PR job because of Robert Pattinson and my little sister. And, you know, we never did see him. And so that was unfortunate.
But you have the story.
But we have the story and the memory. And I did not get fired. And, you know, we still do not know Robert Pattinson to this day. But it's fun. There's stories in there. And so you get your stories from TV and movie and Netflix and wherever. And then they become your stories, too, because you went there and you made your own.
I still get that feeling whenever I see a trailer or a trailer lined up in a street in New York. It's very thrilling when you have all the lights up and you realize everybody's in it together. What a big production it takes to put together the things that we take for granted. How long it takes to film a scene. And that might lead me to it's kind of a different twist on filming locations. But I'm actually a big fan of studio tours. I've actually now been on all the studio tours in the US. So there's 4 in LA. Obviously, Universal Studios is a more amusement park version of it, but you do get to go. They do take you behind and backstage. And last year was actually the 60th anniversary, so they brought back the whole reason studio tours started was because the executives, all their family members wanted to see the behind the scenes of filming. So there was always this allure of what's it like behind the scenes. So it's just started as these little trams. They were pink and frilly at the time, and they would just sell a little box lunch and just drive around and see what they saw. And now that tour has developed into like the big thing, the big attraction at Universal Studios Hollywood, but also Paramount Pictures. When I worked in entertainment, I always thought Paramount Pictures was the most historic and magical lot with the big gate on Bronson. There's just something about it that you feel like you're part of cinematic history. So a couple of years ago, I went and did that tour. There were a couple commercials happening. And so they drove us around. It was like Brady Bunch had filmed there. At one point, they let us get out of the little tram, and they had us act out a scene on the back lot. So then we got to act.
Oh, that's fun.
You acted on the back lot of a real Hollywood set. So that was a fun, interactive way. So then by that point, I was like, oh, I've already done 2 studio tours. I don't need to do any more. Then I went over to Warner Brothers, which I would say is probably one of the best experiences because they take you on their tram and into the back lot. And you get to see the Gilmore Girls gazebo. You get to walk through the sets. So you get to walk down the streets and the Growing Pains house from back in my day was there. And then they take you to the Friends Fountain. So I have a little bit of a funny history because my first job was actually in TV. I worked at the WB when it still existed, and it filmed. I used to park my car by the Friends Fountain before it was a big deal. But they've now demolished the ranch where my office was, and they moved the Friends Fountain over. So now you get to see the Friends Fountain as part of that tour. They've put up an orange couch in front of it to take pictures on. You also get to go into a recreation of the Big Bang Theory. And then over in Sony in Culver City, they also have a wonderful tour what's a little bit more focused on sound. And so you go into an orchestra, a soundstage with an orchestra set up, and that's where like Spielberg and John Williams have this is the couch they sat on to score all these amazing Academy Award-winning films. So each of those. So after doing them all, I was like, I want more. It felt like such a behind the scenes. Like I felt like I was getting to see different aspects of the film industries from doing all those tours. And then finally, those 4 in LA, Trilith in Atlanta. The last one in the US is the tour at NBC Studios here. 30 Rock. And so as a big SNL fan, I had already been to the studio, but to take that tour and actually go backstage and see how Fallon is filmed, and you actually get to sit in Fallon's studio seats, and the leather seats are the same leather as a Ferrari. So it's like you get even more, there's even
insider knowledge.
Yeah, it's like all these little things. And Kelly, I think depending on the time you go, sometimes you go into the Kelly Clarkson show's studio. So I think that for people who want a guaranteed easy way to see filming locations, those tours are always an easy way to be there and be in the moment, and you'll definitely see something.
You don't necessarily have to go to Morocco, just outside the Sahara, or even Dubrovnik, or somewhere that's a little harder to get to, maybe a little more expensive. There's studio tours throughout the country.
I was a big Mickey Mouse Club fan growing up, which actually also informed some of my early travels because we went to.
I feel like we have so much to talk about. We really have a similar outlook on travel.
So like I was such a big Mickey Mouse Club fan. I would write the letters, to like Buena Vista, Florida. And somehow I don't know how I maneuvered this as a teenager in high school before the internet, but I got my family to have a family reunion with my relatives from all over the world at Walt Disney World at the same time I could go to a Mickey Mouse Club taping.
I love the way your mind works.
That wasn't even where I was going with this. I was going to say before Mickey Mouse Club, one of the commercials that was also on Disney Channel was for Avonlea. And I actually was big. And so I was more aware of Anne of Green Gables, but I didn't personally watch it. But when I went to Prince Edward Island, I would say that was probably one of the most magical places I've been. It's so easy to get around. Everything is rolling hill and just looks like you want it to be. And I ended up going to every little nook and cranny that existed that was tied to Anne of Green Gables, the author's house, the this, that. And just even though I wasn't aware of the actual franchise and all the books and movies that come out of it, I had an appreciation for it just because other people were so into. I had the raspberry cordial. I did all the things that you're supposed to do. I didn't have my braids, but but there was a lot of things that in and around that were all surrounding that world. And there's actually I guess it's also interesting. Apparently, Anne of Green Gables is really big in Japan, so it brings a big Japanese community there because of it. So I also think it's fascinating how different cultures travel to different places for filming locations. Like other places, people might come to New York because they want to see something else other than what we know. So I think kind of opening our perspective to our pop culture versus what somebody else might see of as an amazing place to visit because of something they know is also kind of a way to see it from the flip side.
Rachel Chang, thank you for joining us. That was such a fun conversation.